know bodybuilding is a totally different animal from powerlifting, so why not get the guru here himself, Eric Helms, to come on and teach us. So Eric, let's start this right off. How do we get gains?
That's an easy question. You just lift the weights. So, no, but that's a good intro. I think Ben Escrow is a really smart guy, very successful coach of both powerlifters and bodybuilders, actually. And he's probably in line with a lot of the thinking I have. Not that I've had extensive conversations with him, but in both, whether the goal is maximal strength or whether the goal is maximal hypertrophy, a big part of it is progressive overload. And I think that is always worth talking about because there's still some of this bodybuilding mythology out there where the goal of training is to feel like you got hit by a train, or the goal of training is to get a wicked pump, or the goal of training is to hit it from every angle. And often I think we neglect in the bodybuilding community talking about how just important it is to see progress in terms of whether that's volume or intensity over time. So that's probably step one, is ensure that you have progressive overload built into your plan.
So, wait, let's back up a little bit. So does bodybuilding programming differ from powerlifting programming then?
I would say so, yeah. So I think a good way to look at it is that a powerlifter must do the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, right? And the goal is to do one rep as heavy as you possibly can to get the biggest total. While a bodybuilder, you could make an argument, would benefit from using the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, but I don't think you could say that a bench press is any more important than a row for a bodybuilder, or a squat any more important than maybe a military press or something like that. Because the goal is to get symmetrical development over the whole body. So I think the bodybuilders can learn a lot from powerlifters. One thing that powerlifters do effectively is that progressive overload is the forefront of their mind. They're always trying to lift more weight. And they use, three very effective movements. So I think a bodybuilder should have kind of a core group of compound movements that they stick with and try to become experts with. Then they all have more accessory movements, and they include things for other body parts, of course. But there are definitely some similarities. So having a core group of exercises, compound lifts that effectively train a lot of muscle groups at once, and that you try to progressively overload over time. And then there should be some strength focus as a bodybuilder, but I don't think it should be the main focus. It's good to train across a variety of rep ranges. There's a fair amount of theoretical reason to do that to optimize muscle growth.
So do you think that a bodybuilder could reach their max potential if they left out the bench squat and the deadlift? Do you think that those are necessary movements, or do you think for bodybuilding purposes they could achieve maybe their max results doing some type of variation, like sticking maybe to dumbbells, or not doing deadlifts, sticking to the rows and then doing other exercises? Because there's bodybuilders who don't like to do those exercises, but do you think that they're necessary?
Yeah, no one likes to squat.
I don't think they're necessary. I think they're very good tools. But I totally agree. If you did incline bench, RDL, and front squat, you could probably get just as good of a physique, or even if you had to do like leg press, hip thrust, and like a dumbbell press. So long as you can take the same principles, progressively overload them, fill in any gaps that you might not get from that development. Like you might need to do some weighted back extensions if in that last situation I provided. So I wouldn't say that the big three are a requirement. And I know right now it's very popular for bodybuilders to cross-compete and vice versa. I do it myself. But it's important that I don't think we should put the big three on such a pedestal that bodybuilders start thinking they have to do them.
So you mentioned like the dumbbell bench press. So we know that you said progressive overload, but wouldn't using like a barbell movement have a lot more, you're using more volume obviously versus a dumbbell movement. So couldn't you argue that a barbell movement would be better for bodybuilding purposes?
You could make an argument. But when you're talking about volume, you're talking about volume load. And that's, reps times sets times the load of the bar. But really, you can't compare the volume load of one movement to another. You can only compare volume load like kind of within the same movement. Because the different, equipment, body position you have to be in, and sometimes ranges of motion are going to mean that the amount of weight you can lift is and the amount of really the muscle activation and stimulus you get are going to be different. So like we could compare by that logic, you know, a decline bench is better than a bench press, you know. So or a calf raise would be the best exercise of all, you know, because